Is PVM leaving average players behind?
I think old school RuneScape has some of the best PVM of any MMORPG on the market. The game has evolved from simple encounters like the King Black Dragon and the
Damn. Dude, that seeing Wooks kill Inferno for the first time, if that doesn't give you chills, guys, you might not be human. Holy crap.
Fight Queen, into things like raids, the Inferno, the Colosseum, Awakened bosses, and encounters that demand genuine mechanical skill. And I think that's a good thing. But I recently have started asking myself a
Dude, that is a sick-ass render. What gear is that? Is this RuneScape 3? Is this AI slop?
different question. Is Jagex raising the PVM skill ceiling too quickly? Now, before anybody starts writing me off as someone who just wants easier bosses,
Yeah,
let me be
Twisted Bow
clear.
looks a little sketch.
I do not think the Inferno was a mistake. I do not think the Colosseum was a mistake.
True. Neither do I.
I do not think difficult content should disappear from this game.
True.
I think prestige is healthy. I think aspirational content is healthy.
Yes.
I think the best players deserve content that challenges them. The question I want to ask is whether Jagex can continue to raise the skill ceiling indefinitely without creating a bigger and bigger gap between the players who participate in new PVM and the players who simply watch it on YouTube. Because I think there are good arguments on both sides.
I mean, they already did that when they added the Inferno cape in the game. How? Like, we actually did the math or something, and it's like less than 10% of people that play RuneScape have the Inferno cape. Like, they just can't do it, or they just don't attempt it because they just don't think that they can. Yo, sync world first blood torva, by the way, insane.
It's done.
The biggest argument is simple. Endgame players need an endgame. A player with max combat stats, max gear, years of experience, and thousands of boss kills is not going to remain engaged by another 4-cath level encounter.
Damn. I really think like what he's trying to say here is like, will the gap between like players like Triumphant and myself continue to widen? And I think that that's really what he's picking up here is like the players that can and the players that can't, like, will that gap continue to like spread and like widen? I think that that's what he's getting at here.
The best players need a new mountain to climb. There is also the issue of prestige. The reason why people admire the Infernal Cape or a Quiver is because not everyone has one.
Exactly.
Some rewards should be difficult to obtain.
Yep.
If every challenge was designed around the average player, eventually the game would lose some of the accomplishments that make MMOs memorable. Difficult content also creates some of the best moments in the community, with things like world first races and first raid clears.
Dude, we reacted to this. World first Bodhi top clear. Cinema. Bodhi was dead. Bodhi was dead doing absolutely nothing on that clear. Is that incredible or what? World first top clear and Bodhi was dead. Cinema.
Even hardcore level 3 and low level boss clears that nobody thought was possible. These moments generate excitement and help keep the game alive for years. Another important point is that the community naturally improves over time. There was once a time
we all
when
slightly
Jad
get better
was considered
together.
almost impossible. There was once a time when solo God Wars seemed ridiculous.
Yep.
There was once a time when people thought the Inferno would never become common.
Damn.
The player base adapts. People learn. Guides become better. What once seemed impossible slowly becomes achievable. One of the most
was Lake in that world first top? It was Lake, Bodhi, and Wooks. I don't remember the other two guys. I don't know who they are.
Things about old school PVM progression is that early and mid-game content already does a surprisingly good job of preparing players for this journey. For example, Scurious is one of the best modern introductions to PVM mechanics we have in the game.
I would actually advocate that there needs to be another Scurious in the early game to get people hyped up about bossing. And I think that was kind of the idea behind the cow a little bit, is like your first boss that you go and do that has a couple of mechanics. I think Titans is good. Scorius is good, but I'm talking about even earlier. Like more foreshadowing of what the game offers at the end game. Because it took me a couple of months to get to the point where I was like, wait, this game is actually difficult. And I would like for people to see that earlier on.
Constant movement pressure, how to recognize and react to telegraphed attacks, and how to maintain damage uptime while still respecting mechanics. It also subtly introduces the idea of prayer usage under pressure, where you are not just praying correctly once, but adjusting quickly as the fight evolves. Perilous Moons continues that progression in a different way. Instead of focusing on raw reaction checks, it emphasizes controlled movement, positioning, and understanding how boss arenas shape your decisions. It teaches players to think about where they are standing at all times, how to avoid overlapping damage zones, and how to stay calm while multiple mechanics are happening at once. In many ways, it feels like a bridge between simple PvM and more complex raids.
Wait, the new boss coming with Wormscrag, you might be cooking with that. I wonder what point in progression that's going to come in at, because if it comes before Song of the Elves or before Perilous Moons, it could be a good repeatable boss that people farm to get the two-handed weapon so that they can go farm Slayer, because you're going to want to rush that now on Iron Man. You're going to want to rush that so that you can AoE farm Slayer
style encounters. What makes this important is that these bosses show
Fire Cape range. Dude, that's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, this is exactly what I think needs to be added to the game. A Fire Cape level boss where you learn in-game mechanics or kind of see what the game's going to be like, that drops an actual piece of gear that you need to like progress your account even faster. So like that new weapon that's going to be on the Wormscrag boss is absolutely a cook, especially if it's going to show people in-game mechanics. So I'm looking forward to it.
Can design strong mechanical learning experiences that gradually build players towards endgame content. Finally, high skill expression gives PvM longevity. A simple boss can be mastered in 10 kills. A mechanically deep encounter can take hundreds or even thousands of kills to perfect. That gives
yeah, actually, now that he mentions that, it did take me 2,800 kills to perfect that boss. So yeah, thousands of kills is right on point. Guys, by the way, no flex or anything, but I did get perfect Doom yesterday. I did actually accomplish that. So that let that sink in. That CA is now done. Okay, that has happened.
Experience players reasons to keep playing. And I think all of those are good arguments. In fact, if I only looked at the game through the perspective of the top 1% of PvM players, I would probably agree. But I think there is another side to this conversation. My biggest concern is that the average player is already much farther from the PvM ceiling than many people realize. Online communities create a strange effect where everything gets labeled as easy. Fire Cape is easy, Inferno is easy, raids are easy.
And I blame No Monkey for titling every single video that he has free. X equals free now. This is free. Inferno Cape is now free. Every time No Monkey does that, this is what he's doing, guys. He's gaslighting the normies.
But the people saying those things are often the players who have spent thousands of hours mastering the game. Simply obtaining a Fire Cape already puts a player ahead of a significant portion of the player base in terms of PvM progression. I think the loudest voices in the community are often not representative of the average player.
Right.
Another issue is that the progression ladder keeps getting larger.
Yeah.
A healthy MMO should have a series of achievable goals.
Guys, when Palomore comes into the chat and he starts spamming a bunch of sus stuff about putting baby carrots in his ass and shit, that is not a representative of our community as a whole. You have to understand that when people come into the chat, they start saying some crazy shit. That is not how we get down over here all the time. That's just one guy. You know what I mean? That's literally just one guy. You got to ignore the loud people.
A player beats one challenge and then gains the confidence to try the next. But eventually, many players reach a point where the next step feels less like a step and more like a cliff. The problem is not that they cannot learn. The problem is that they stop believing they can. I think perception matters almost as much as reality. When the average player hears discussions about true tile mechanics, one-tick prayer flicking, Luke's walking, tile skipping, and advanced movement techniques, many simply decide that content is not designed for them.
Who is one-tick prayer flick woo walking? Who is this? Guys, who is one-tick prayer flick woo walking? That's crazy.
Many of these techniques were never intended by Jagex. They were developed by players as methods of overcoming difficult content. But as the skill ceiling rises, there is a risk that these optimizations slowly become expectations. What was once mastery can slowly become baseline knowledge.
That's crazy to me.
Harder content naturally encourages more gatekeeping. Higher KC requirements, higher gear requirements, means fewer opportunities for the people trying to learn the content. The harder an encounter becomes, the less willing people are to take inexperienced players. I do not think this is because the community is bad. I think it is a natural consequence of failure becoming expensive.
Gatekeeping.
There is also the economic side.
Gatekeeping always happens. When the game gets more difficult, then you need to gatekeep in order to accomplish the content. So then you can just play with less people. Harder the group content is. That's what happened in Retail WoW. Retail WoW started this insane spiral of gatekeeping because you have to have insanely geared, good players who are capable of listening, learning, and correcting their mistakes, and they're much better than the average player in order to have a chance at clearing the content after you pull it 300 times. So like when it gets to that level of difficulty, there's an insane gatekeeping culture that happens. Same thing with Mythic Plus. Like once you get 20 plus keys, like less than 0.1% of the players can actually clear those keys. So you can only play with a very small percentage of players. And you're always like filtering through people and blacklisting people. And then now I'm not playing with anybody. And like gatekeeping is very bad in hard group games. That's why I like RuneScape. Most of the shit is solo. The only person that gatekeeps you is yourself. Most of the time. There's a couple, CAs where you have to have other people. But that's why I like RuneScape.
As encounters become more demanding, players increasingly feel pressure to own mega rares and expensive endgame gear. Whether or not that gear is actually required becomes almost irrelevant. If the community believes it is required, many players will never even attempt the content. The barrier becomes mechanical skill, account progression, and billions of GP all at the same time. I also think there is a larger design problem. We often talk about power creep, but I think there is also a such thing as difficulty creep.
Right. But the thing is like, yeah, you need those 3 items, but Tob is probably the worst gatekeeping in RuneScape. Would you guys agree? Tob has the worst gatekeeping culture. And the reason that is because Tob is kind of anti-RuneScape design. And what I mean by that is like RuneScape, the reason that Doom is the best designed boss in the game, number 1, it's solo. Number 2, it's easy until it gets hard. So you have optional difficulty, but wave 1 through 6, almost anybody can do. That's why Doom is just like a masterpiece of design. It doesn't gatekeep. You can get every single piece of gear from 1 through 6. You don't have to ever send an 8. But if you want a higher chance, it rewards you for being good at the game with higher chance of loot, right? And so that's why I think Doom is just like a perfect design. Now, Tob gets into the World of Warcraft issue, where Tob is actually too hard. There is no easier version that drops any loot. You either get good or you don't get the loot. And that is where it's kind of like, it's tough. The only thing that saves it is if you're playing a main and you could just go do other bosses to make money and then buy the gear from Tob because you're not good enough to do Tob. But if you're an Iron Man, you're screwed. If you either get good or you just don't get the loot. And so that's a whole nother problem.
If every update has to be harder than the last one, Jagex eventually starts designing for a smaller and smaller percentage of the player base. And I think that creates a dangerous cycle.
I actually think that's why in raids for you guys that they're doing it as a 2-man scale. because it'll be less gatekeeping. Meaning if you bring, maybe will it, or will it actually be harder? Wait, will there be more gatekeeping in Raids 4 or less? I heard Raids 4 is going to be tough, just like Tob. The difficulty of Raids 4 is very important. This is why I actually like TOA and Chambers a lot, is because you can kind of, in Chambers, you could just die until you finish it. In TOA, you could set your difficulty. Like almost anybody could do a 150, and the freaking shadow drops in a 150. But Tob is very hard, and a lot of people say Tob is their favorite raid, but it does gatekeep a lot of the community from doing it. There's got to be a sweet spot between like an easier version of the raid that still drops all the content, but it's just a way lower drop rate. I think that's more RuneScape like. I don't know if Tob is very RuneScape like. Tob is more World of Warcraft like. So I guess we'll have to see on how Raids 4 works. I was thinking that maybe Raids 4 won't have as much gatekeeping since it's scaled for 2 people.
New content, Jagex sees players mastering it. The next update becomes even harder, then the gap grows larger. Eventually, average players stop viewing endgame PVM as something that they can work towards and starts viewing it as content that belongs to somebody else.
Yeah.
I do not think that the answer is making...
I feel bad, man. I feel bad. I hope that that's not how Triumphant is feeling. Because I feel bad, like, if he's down here looking up the mountain and he sees everybody else in the clan having fun, that's gotta feel lonely. And I hope that's not how he's feeling. Down here at the bottom, looking up here at all of us Inferno Capers and Quiver Havers. And maybe I'll write him. Maybe I'll write to him real quick and just let him know he's doing a good job, man. And he's gonna have it soon. Yo, Try. Great job in the call-o. All right. You know what? I'm glad I saw this photo. That made me really think about Try, and I feel like you got to give people that encouragement every now and then. It helps them keep going. Be nice to people, guys.
Somebody else. I do not think that the answer is making bossing easier. I think that would actually be a mistake. I think the answer is making progression feel better. A big part of that is ensuring that early and mid-game PVM continues to act as a true training ground for endgame mechanics. We already see strong examples of this with bosses like Scurious and Perilous Moons. I think this philosophy could be expanded further and made more intentional. Instead of mechanics appearing for the first time in high-end raids or pinnacle content, Jagex...
This is what I'm saying, bro. I'm saying the same thing. More Scuriouses. More Scuriouses for the earlier game. That teach you like gear switching and stuff. Like offensive switches. You know what boss is the best boss in the game? The freaking the Chaos Elemental or some shit. The balance elemental from Gothic Sleeps, brother. That boss, that is like all of RuneScape right there. That boss is so good. If they can have the balance elemental as like a training thing, and then there's some quests where you have to go and like practice against that where it's swapping, that's really good. Titan's pretty good too, but like the balance elemental is like that is RuneScape.
Could gradually introduce them in lower stakes environment, then layer the complexity over time. That way, when players eventually reach endgame PPM, they are not learning entirely new concepts under pressure. They are refining skills they have already been practicing for a long time. I also think there should be more encounters with scalable difficulty. The Tombs of a Mascot invocation system is one of the best ideas that Jagex has ever introduced because it allows players to slowly...
Chad, TOA, guys, TOA without the freaking puzzle rooms would just be the most goated raid design ever. I'm sorry if you don't think that, but this is the coolest system ever. Customizable difficulty that rewards you with higher loot chance. I just think that it's such a insanely good design.
Increase the challenge as they improve. I would love to see more content designed this way. I also think Jagex should be more careful about balancing future encounters around advanced emergent mechanics. Players should absolutely be rewarded for mastering those techniques, but I do not think they should become the expectation for average players. The best optimizations should remain exactly that, optimizations,
Right.
not requirements. At the end of the day, I do not think old school RuneScape has a problem with difficult
I like
PvM.
this video.
I think difficult PvM is actually one of its greatest strengths. My concern is that the game may eventually develop a progression
This guy didn't get invited to top and he made a whole ass video about it. Guys, what are we talking about? Okay. Unbelievable.
problem. I do not think the solution is to lower the skill ceiling. I think the solution is widening the staircase that leads to it. Give elite players bigger mountains to climb, but also build more paths that help average players reach those mountains. Because a healthy MMO should not only reward mastery, it should encourage players to believe that mastery is something they can eventually achieve.
What in the Shanghai noon poetry haiku shit was that? Build mountains, but build more pathways to get up the mountain. What in the hell? I mean, I guess I kind of see what he's saying. Yeah, I mean, but that's a crazy way to say it. I guess it's very poetic there, buddy.
Average players reach those mountains. Because a healthy MMO should not only reward mastery, it should encourage players to believe that mastery is something they can eventually achieve. And I think the long-term success of old school RuneScape depends on keeping that belief alive. But that is just my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Do you think Jagex is raising the PvM skill ceiling too much? Or do you think that this evolution is exactly what has kept old school RuneScape alive all these years?
No, I mean, if RuneScape was too easy, I don't know, man. You need some form of elitism in video games to give people things to strive for. I think that RuneScape is doing a really good job. However, as a new player who just played a year ago, I was getting a bit bored of how easy the game was for the first month. As soon as I hit CG, my eyes opened and I was like, wait a second. This game might actually be difficult. And then I started enjoying it. But it shouldn't take me that long to get to difficult content. And that was me degenning the game for a full month. So I think that there could be more pathways along the mountain towards the base of it at base camp 1 before you start scaling to the top. You know what I mean? On some type shit. Anyways, guys, right now what we're going to do, W video, by the way. W video. What was that guy's name? Shout out to Beyond Biz for 69 subs. 62 subs. Actually, you know what? Why don't we... I'm going to link it in the chat if you want to send this guy a sub if you thought that was a good video. Support the homie, the small creators out there that are making good content.